up randoms, welcome back to my channel. I forgot to record an intro for this video, so here we go. In today's video I am drawing a family portrait that I was asked to do by a friend, and there are 12 members of this family, so it is officially the biggest family portrait that I have ever done. So I'm going to start off with a sketch, which you can see I did most of the sketching off camera, or at least the positioning, and a very rough sketch. Once I've done the sketch, I then go in with a Sharpie marker. The reason that I use Sharpies is because they are water resistant, and I'm going to be doing this piece in watercolor. So I didn't want the line work to smudge or anything like that. I wanted it to remain the same for the entire picture. I know that there are other markers out there, like there's Copic liners, which I have a couple of, but they were too thin for what I wanted in this. And I also, the ones that I have are like 0.05 and 0.03, so they weren't really what I was looking for this piece, especially because this is an A3, so it is quite large. Along with being like the most people that I've ever done in a portrait, it's also the largest portrait that I have ever done. It was difficult trying to get the sizing and proportions correct for all of the different people, as there were children and adults together, but I was given all of their ages, so it did make it a little bit easier trying to figure out who should be a little bit taller than the other, look a little bit more mature. It's also probably one of the, not the first pictures that I've done of children, but probably one of the most detailed pieces I've done of children, and I'm so happy with the way that they all turned out. The watercolors that I'm using for this piece, I am using Art Prism Naples Yellow for a majority of the skin tones, and then mixing in some other tones from my Koi watercolors, the Sakura Pocket palette, watercolor palette, the small one. I think it's got 24 colors in it, and that's, you would have seen it in all of my other videos that I do watercolor. That is my main palette that I use. I have actually got some watercolor tubes from my brother that I do plan on using in some future pieces. I believe they're Art Prism as well, maybe some Art Spectrum ones, I'm not too sure. I will have to look into that for the next videos, but I will definitely start using those a little bit more in the future as well, because there's a couple of different colors and I want to test out the different pigments and see which ones are more vibrant. What else do I have to say about this piece of work? It took me a long time. I think in total it took just over 5.5 hours to do the entire thing. If I were to do anything differently next time for the exact same piece, I think instead of doing these sketches directly onto this piece of paper, I would probably do the sketches separate on another piece, get them 100% the way that I wanted them looking, and then use a light box to then transfer those pictures onto the watercolor paper, rather than doing all of the sketching and final line work on one piece of paper. It didn't affect the way that the paper was taking the watercolor or anything like that. It wasn't like, it didn't ball up or anything like that. I think it was just more the accuracy and whatnot. I feel like perhaps I could have got better lines or better proportions if I had have done it the other way, but it's all learning experience, and I can definitely try that for the next time that I do something like this, if I do another portrait in the future. But take that out of the equation, and as I said, I'm super happy with the way that this turned out, and I think it has a lot of character. I think too, another thing, if I had have done it the way that I just mentioned, it would have taken double the amount of time. Not that that is something that I'm worried about, it's just something that I've noticed. If I do it that way, it does take a lot longer. I also did notice by doing this piece that there are a couple of things that I can work on myself, and one of those things is using different sized brushes. I definitely find myself using just the one size brush, and I can use that in small areas or large areas, but I think it would be more efficient and potentially better off for like the really detailed areas, and I could get a lot more detail into the picture if I did use different size brushes, because I have a fair few here ranging from, I think it's like size 0.5 all the way up to like maybe a number 10. I'm not sure, I'd have to have a look, but I do have a number of different brushes, and there's round brushes and flat brushes, so I think if I use them, perhaps it would make the artwork look different and give it a bit more detail and even some more depth. Same with my line art. I tend to just use one pen, and I also notice that I do this in my digital art as well, and it is so easy to change the brush size or the pen size when you're doing digital art, and yet I do the entire piece in one size brush. So I don't know whether that's super talented or super silly, but it's just a habit that I noticed that I have, and it's something that I want to try and change, or try and start using different sizes of brushes to see whether or not it actually changes the way that my art. Another thing that I noticed I did differently with this piece of artwork was usually I will create an entire sketch for the whole piece at the beginning, and then I will go in with the line art, remove all of the sketch layer, and then go in with watercolor. With this particular piece, I actually did a very, very rough sketch layer. I sketched out half of the people in a little bit more detail, and then with line art, and then I went back to the people at the top, which was still a very rough sketch, and then refined those sketch a little bit more and did the line art for each individual person separately. So I don't know why exactly I did it that way. I guess I was just really excited to draw the kid first, and that's why I just went straight in and did that first. But I think it didn't affect the way that I created this whole piece too much. I think it probably still turned out the same way it would have if I had done the entire sketch layer first. I've also been thinking a lot about how I've been doing my shading. You'll see it shortly when I start the watercolor process, but I actually have been putting down my flat layer first of color, and then I think I've been trying to sort of copy the way that I do it digitally, because I like the way that my shading has been going when I do my digital art, and I am really trying to transfer that into my traditional art. So I do a flat layer of color, and then I usually use like a purpley color or a blue color on Procreate, which is what I use on my iPad. I then use this blue color and fill in all of the sections that I think that there would be a shadow in, and I am still learning shadows, but I'm definitely better at it than I was even 6 months ago. But yeah, I fill in the shadow sections, and then I change that layer to multiply so that the shading has a little bit more than a grey tone. It's obviously got a purple or blue tone depending on what I'm using, but I have been trying to sort of use that same method but obviously differently in my traditional art. And for this piece I didn't use like a blue or a purple. I just tried to darken the colors that I was already using with my watercolor to try and darken those sections while still having it look cohesive, because I didn't want it to stand out too much with like a really purple or a really blue tone to it, because it is quite hard. I haven't quite figured out yet how to do that with watercolor, whereas like with digital obviously you can change it really easily just by clicking a button or changing the transparency and things like that. So it's something I need to practice more with my watercolor, but I think it would definitely benefit me if I were to practice that and try and incorporate that into my art, because I think it works really well in my digital art. So I would love to bring that into my traditional art a lot more. So as you can see, I have now completed the line art section of the painting, and I'm going in with the watercolor. The main paint that I'm using for the skin tone is the Art Prism Naples Yellow. I found that to be a really good skin tone, and then I tend to mix that with my Sakura Koi watercolor palette, which you can see on the right there. I am trying to, as you can see, I'm going into the cheeks with a little bit of like a red pink tone and trying to sort of blend that in with the skin tone while it is still wet. I've seen a few people do this and I haven't quite mastered it yet, but it definitely makes the skin look brighter, like it's got a bit more tone. So I really do enjoy the way that that looks, and I want to keep practicing that and improving on the techniques that I use to do that. I will be watching more videos to help me and my technique in regards to that. As for some of the videos that I have coming up next, I have a video, I've done an acrylic painting which is of some owls. That will be the next video going up, and I'm super excited to show you guys that. I think it turned out really well. It's kind of like a draw this in your style but with a painting that I already own, so that will be very cool to share with you. After that I have a fairy door that I've created out of clay, and that's for my son's room. So I show you the process of how to create a fairy door and how I did mine. And then I also have a watercolor piece or fan art piece of Morgana from League of Legends, so if that's something that you're interested in, there will be a video coming up on that too. And I've also got a couple more videos planned for the future, but if you have anything in mind that you would like to see me do, please let me know. I'm always interested to hear what you would like to see on here as well. That's pretty much it from me today, guys. I know that most of my videos tend to be around the 10 to 14 minute mark a lot of the time, and I think the reason that I originally did that is because I heard somewhere that the YouTube algorithm likes videos that are either 10 minutes or above, so I've always tried to make my videos go for 10 to 12 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer depending on what I actually want to show you in that video, but I never seem to have enough to talk about for the entire 10 minutes, so I think I might start shortening them. I think one of the reasons too that they suggest that you do them longer is because the watch time will be longer even if the whole video isn't being watched, but I think I would prefer that an entire 2 or 3 minute video was watched, or even a 5-minute video was watched for 2 or 3 minutes in comparison to a 14-minute video being watched for 5 minutes. I don't know. But I think I might start shortening my videos soon and just seeing how that works for me and for my channel. So I'd really love some feedback on what you think, whether you love sitting around for this 14 minutes of this video and whether you've watched the entire thing, or if you prefer to have a shorter video so you can sort of get it all in a quicker period rather than sitting through me rambling for 14 minutes about how I can't ramble for 14 minutes. But yeah, I'd love some feedback, guys. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching my video. If you have liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. And if you aren't already subscribed, please do so. I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!